Just a quick channel note before we start. You may use the timestamp in the description to skip ahead to the main presentation if you wish. We're working to set up a virtual silver meetup on the interwebs for as soon as we may. A double dozen people have expressed interest in participating, but most of those people have not followed through by contacting me to get the questionnaire that will give me the information to make it happen. I am gathering that some are having difficulty finding the email on the channel page. Therefore, it is being shown on the screen now. Stop the video, copy it down, send me an email. If you want to join the hangout with a bunch of other silver practitioners and put faces and voices to the names in the comments. This should be fun. Let all your lyings be such as shall best like yourself, ever considering out of what fight your enemy chargeth you. But be sure to keep your distance, so that neither head, arms, hands, body, nor legs be within his reach, but that he must first of necessity put in his foot or feet, at which time you have the choice of 3 actions by which you may endanger him and go free yourself. The first is to strike or thrust at him at that instant when he have gained you the place by his coming in. The second is to ward, and after to strike or thrust from that, remembering your governors. The third is to slip a little back and to strike or thrust after him. From Chapter 2 of George Silver's Brief Instructions upon My Paradoxes of Defense. Greetings, fencers of the interwebs. My name is William Kilmer. I am Billy to exactly 2 people in known space, Bill or Will to most, and I fence at Worcester Historical Swordsmanship in Worcester, Massachusetts, in the United States. I have been a student of George Silver's systems for something over 3 years. Do you have a moment to talk about the true fight of George Silver? Episode 1, we discussed how the void is foundational to the fight of George Silver. 2 out of the 3 defensive actions which Silver discusses include slipping a little back rather than warding the opponent's attack. Today we will start looking at how Stephen Hand teaches this technique in his book, English Swordsmanship, The True Fight of George Silver, Volume 1, and where I diverge from him in the order in which I present the material. Part of the footage of this episode was shot at the Worcester Fencing Club with Ken Mondschien, the principal instructor of Massachusetts Historical Swordsmanship. Thank you, Ken. We will be looking principally today at Silver's 3rd defensive action, to slip a little back and to strike or thrust after him. And we'll begin with exercise 2 from Stephen Hand's English Swordsmanship, Chapter 4, Part 1, Open Fight. Exercise 1 from this part of Chapter 4 will be included in the second video on this section of Chapter 4 with an explanation of why, with beginners, I would save it for later in the curriculum. The vocabulary of Silver's fight has been covered in the earlier episodes, so if you have not seen episode 1, 2, 3, or 4, you might want to watch them before continuing. Exercise 2. Against an attack in the time of the hand, body, and foot, the patient agent should slip back and left as shown. This is an exercise in learning measure and distance. The patient agent is learning to make the agent miss their strike. The agent should be using a downright blow, which is a cut number 1. It is best practice for this exercise to do it with a variety of different partners, with different heights and with different lengths of pace, lunge, and pass. Also, if you are working with the same partner repeatedly, If you have access to different lengths of swords, that can be helpful. The agent should practice making a clean attack that would hit if the patient did not slip, and doing so in a true time of hand, body, and foot. Do not get sloppy, be consistent, make a simple but clean attack, minding your governors. The patient should try to have the agent's strike miss by as narrow a margin as possible. This sets the patient up for the countercut that will be added in a later exercise. This means that the patient will be hit occasionally because learning. Which brings us to exercise 3. The agent should make a range of attacks, some with a normal pass forward, and some with a larger pass. The patient agent should slip back as required to be missed by the smallest possible margin. It is generally good for the agent to start slowly and increase the tempo as the patient becomes more confident. At this point, we move to an exercise in which the patient agent slips back out of the range of the attack and attempts to get an angle to countercut the agent's arm when the agent is spent. Before moving on, let's take a moment to look at safety and at appropriate equipment. This is the first exercise in which somebody is actually getting a hit. Basically, for a sword of the weight that silver wants you to use, you will want to gear up as you would for a long sword. A good quality fencing mask or fencing helmet in good repair is essential. If you use a fencing mask, you want to have back of the head protection that also covers the back of your neck. These are not good target in any tournament of which I am aware, but accidents happen. Fencing masks are disposable and should be replaced on the same schedule that a sailor shortens sail. Do it the first time you think of it. A fencing jacket should be 350 newtons or better. I understand some tournaments are now requiring more. This is mainly protection against a broken blade. When selecting a jacket, remember that you have to defend your equipment as much as you defend your body. How much padding you want depends on whether you are more interested in defending a larger target and avoiding the inevitable bruises, or if you are comfortable with collecting some bruises but want to make your silhouette as compact as possible. I use a lighter jacket than Michael does. I don't know if you can see how much heavier the padding on Michael's jacket is than on mine, but then again, I have an interesting relationship with pain, and I find it really annoying when my gear is hit, but the strike or thrust would have missed my body. So, there's that. Michael's jacket and mine are both from Spez, but there are a number of good makers out there. Look around, see what other people in your club are wearing and how they like it. Tournaments in my area generally require fencing pants or knickers that are 350 newtons or better. The knickers should cover you at least to the knee, although in club or daily practice, many of us often opt for athletic pants. Whether you wear athletic pants or neutered rated fencing pants for your workout, do wear your cup and or your chest protector as is anatomically appropriate for you. You may not be glad often, but oh, you kid. Also, under your jacket, if you use this style, or perhaps over your jacket if you use one like this one, which is Michael's, you should be wearing a gorget to give you extra protection at the throat. If a blade slips up under the bib of the mask, or just in case you get a good shot to the throat. It will eventually happen, and you will be glad that you have your gorget on. If you are wearing knickers, do make sure that your stockings are long enough that you are not constantly dealing with a gap between stocking top and the bottom of your knickers. In tournament play in my area, the rule is expose no flesh, because burrs on the blade will tear into you if they meet any bare skin. Personally, being unreasonably tall, I have given up on stockings altogether and just slap a pair of leg warmers on over my athletic socks, because they come more than halfway up my thigh and they will stay put. With your washable kit, you will want to wash it in cold water, gentle cycle, no bleach, and line dry. Allow at least 2 days before you need the kit for it to dry, if that's at all possible. Otherwise, it's kind of clammy. Pretty much all tournaments around here also require hard protection from knee to ankle. Once again, we often leave these off for club play or daily practice, but you should be sure and wear them enough that you are completely comfortable with them. There are a lot of styles out there. These are knee and shin guards such as are worn by baseball catchers here in the United States, and I like them better than anything else I have tried. After a couple of minutes, I forget that I have them on. Moving on, let's look at gripping the sword and at hand and elbow protection. Since this is the first time that the exercise requires that one of the partners actually strike the other, this is going to be a very brief bit on safety in striking and also on the gripping of the sword. So Michael is going to help me by keeping me centered in the frame. This is what is called a handshake grip, okay? And this is a transitional grip. It is not the grip you want to use when you parry, that is to say ward in Silver's terminology, or the grip that you want to use when you actually strike. When you actually strike, you're going to want to use a hammer grip like this. This is also the grip that you would use when you are making a parry or a ward. Okay? This relaxed grip, the handshake grip, is what you would use to hold the sword at most times. And then when you are thrusting, Silver recommends that you put your thumb up as if you were gripping a saber, which he doesn't say, but if you have done saber, you'll be familiar with the thumb up grip. And then thrust, like that. This brings your structure online with the arm, the hand, and the blade right through the point, all in a straight line. Now, if Michael will step around the camera, what Stephen recommends when you are striking your opponent, in order to not put too much wear and tear on your practice partner, is that instead of driving the cut home with a hammer grip, the moment you make contact, you relax the hand and let the blade draw across your opponent's arm, head, or body. This allows you to come in tempo and still not impart the full force of your strike to your fencing partner. So we all in this area have an interesting relationship with pain, but we don't want to do it to our partners too much. You will notice, if Michael will model, that he is wearing a lightly padded glove and a bracer over his forearm, together with an elbow guard. If you could lift your arm just a little higher and bring it in so we can see the elbow guard there. Okay, this is highly recommended for any exercise or any free play in Silver's system using swords of the appropriate weight, because the arm is targeted a lot. Here is another glove. This one is a little heavier in protection than the glove you saw before, but it's also a little tight inside the basket of many basket hilts. So you have to sort of get settled in there, and you don't have the free range of motion that Michael and I like inside the basket in order to do the different hand grips and just transition quickly from one to another. You will see here, if Michael would take the glove off, here is another slightly more protective bracer. Michael and I own these. We don't use them very much because they are a little heavier than we feel we need most of the time. Okay, here is what I use. This is a saber fencing coach's glove. I wear it with a demi-gauntlet over it, which you've doubtless seen in a lot of our shots, and also with the hard shell elbow protection. Basically, you're gearing pretty much as you would for a long sword if you're gearing for Silver's weapons of an appropriate weight. That would include mask, back of the head protection, gorget, cup, and unless you're doing a not too competitive free play, you might want to put something on your legs from knee to ankle as well. And now let's hit some people with swords. Exercise 4. The agent should attack with a downright blow to the head or body. The patient agent should slip back and countercut the agent's arm as shown. You will notice that I slip left against a right-handed opponent, but I find it better to slip right against a left-handed opponent to set up the line for the countercut. Basically, you want to slip to your opponent's outside. When the agent is of the same handedness as the patient, the downright blow is answered with a downright blow for the countercut. Cut number 1 answered by cut number 1. If the agent is of the opposite handedness from the patient, then the downright blow on the countercut is answered with a reverso. The opposite-handed opponent's cut number 1 is answered with a cut number 2. Once again, it's a matter of practicing so as to slip far enough to be safe, but remain close enough for the countercut to reach the target. You cannot practice this stuff too often. Michael and I use these exercises as a warm-up fairly frequently. Another important element for the patient agent is the timing of the cut, so that it is not so early that it fouls or gets tangled up with the agent's blade, nor so late that it gives an agent the opportunity to redirect their attack. Neither can the patient rely upon the agent lying spent for an indefinite amount of time. The patient must countercut in a time that intercepts the agent's sword arm before the agent has the opportunity to draw back. Exercise 5. The agent should attack with a backhand blow to the head or the body. The patient agent should slip back and countercut the agent's arm as shown. In this exercise, the agent would be making a cut number 2. Against an opponent of the same handedness, the patient replies after slipping with a cut number 2 to the agent's sword arm. Or to quote from Stephen Hand's notes on this countercut, "It is important in any countercut to meet the cutting arm, not to chase it. Therefore, against a downright blow, the countercut was also a downright blow. Against a backhand blow, the countercut must therefore also be a backhand blow. However, in order to meet rather than to chase against an opponent of opposite handedness, I would meet their cut number 2 with a cut number 1. Or at least this seems to work best for me. Let me know in the comments if you have found otherwise." We're going to round off here for this episode. Thanks again to Ken Mondschien, who had never gone through these exercises before, for stepping up and helping us with demonstrating how they might work with a person who is new to the system in the demonstrations done at the Worcester Fencing Club. In our next episode, we will continue to look at the defenses in open fight from Chapter 4 of Stephen Hand's English Swordsmanship, The True Fight of George Silver, Volume 1. It will include 2 one-time counters, which might justly be called just. We will pick up Exercise 1, and I will explain why I would delay offering this exercise and perhaps one other from this section for students who are complete novices. If you have any questions about the exercises thus far shown, please include them in the comments as soon as you may, so that I can try to respond in the second video on this series of exercises. Meanwhile, like, subscribe, hit the bell, and email me if you want to participate in the virtual silver meetup, which I hope will happen sometime before Christmas 2020. See you on the flip side. This is the usual disclaimer. As most of you know, I've been studying the true fight of George Silver for about 3.5 years now. I am not an expert. I'm just a student trying to share the resources that I have found helpful and the conclusions that I have reached so far. I rely heavily upon the expertise of those who have gone before, and I intend to credit their works and opinions whenever I reference them. If I have failed to do so, or you feel that I have misrepresented or misattributed your views, or failed to state that a certain erroneous view is entirely my own, please let me know in the comments or privately, and I will endeavor to make corrections and amends in a subsequent video. All errors are, of course, entirely my own. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you on the flip side.